Hello IP students, today our topic is Societal and Ethics and this is part 3rd. In this lecture we are going to discuss about cybercrime. The US Department of Justice divides cybercrime into three basic categories. First, crime in which the computing device is the target, for example to gain network access. Second, crime in which the computer is used as a weapon, for example a launch of denial of service attack. And third, crime in which the computer is used as an accessory to a crime, for example using a computer to store illegally obtained data. So these are the three basic categories of a cybercrime. And here there is a diagram which shows different types of cybercrimes, which includes unauthorized use and hacking, web hijacking, pornography, child sexual abuse, cyber stalking, software piracy, salami attack, service attack, virus attacks, and phishing. In our last lecture, I already discussed about phishing and farming, and in this lecture, we discuss some more type of cyber crimes. So let us take revision first. First one is phishing. Phishing is the process of collecting your personal information through email or website and claiming to be legitimate. So basically, this definition contains three basic parts. First of all, it is a process of collecting your personal information, and personal information can be obtained using email or using website, and these email or website claiming to be legitimate. So now we can see that phishing is a process of collecting your personal information through email or website claiming to be legitimate, and this information can be include username, password, credit card number, debit card number, social security numbers, Aadhaar number, etc. These all types of information can be um, hack, or we can see that steal through phishing. And oftentimes the email direct you to a website where you can update your personal information, and because this site often looks official, they hope you will be tricked into disclosing valuable information that you have normally would not reveal, and the oftentimes result is the identity theft and the financial loss. So final result is in the forms of identity theft or maybe in financial loss. Second term or second type of cybercrime is spoofing. In spoofing, basically an attacker alters his identity so that someone thinks he is someone else, and it is using email, user ID, password, IP address, etc. And type of spoofing are IP spoofing, email spoofing, and web spoofing. So spoofing, in spoofing, an attacker alters his identity so that someone thinks he is someone else. Next is farming. This is a type third of cybercrime. Farming is more advanced technique to get user credentials by making efforts to entering users into the website, or we can say that it is another type of phishing. In other words, it misdirect users to a fake website. Now it is a very important point that it misdirect user to a fake website that appear to be official, and victims gives their personal information by fault. In farming, basically fake website is created which appears to be officials, and users then access the website and request is popped up regarding username and password and other credentials. So we can see that in farming, basically there is a fake website which look like um, as an original website, and customer gives his personal information through this fake website. This process is called farming. These topics are already discussed in our last lecture. In this lecture, we will discuss some other type of cybercrime. And first one is illegal download. As the name suggests, illegal download. I think all of you are very familiar to this word. Basically, illegal download DING refers to obtaining files for which you don't have the right to use or download from the internet. So this type of download is called the illegal download. So obtaining file for which you don't have the right to use or download from the internet is called the illegal download. Another type of cybercrime is child pornography. Child pornography is defined as any visual or written representation, including images, movies, or text that depicts or advocates sexual activity, which including sexual molestation or exploitation of anyone under the age of 18. So there are three important points regarding to the child pornography. First of all, child pornography is basically contain visual or written representation, which may be an image or movie, which, and second part, that depicts or advocates sexual activity, and third, um, it is for those person who have under the age of 18. So under the age of 18, it is called the child pornography. And Information Technology Act 2000 and Indian Penal Code 1860 provides protection from child pornography. So that is a very important point again. Next is cyberbullying. There are two terms, cyberbullying and cyberstalking, which are very much used in words of cyber world. So let us take them one by one. What is cyberbullying? Cyberbullying is the use of digital communication tools such as internet and cell phones to make another person feel angry, sad, scared, usually again and again. Example of cyberbullying include sending hurtful text or instant messages, posting embarrassing photos or videos on social media, and spreading mean rumors online or with cell phones. It's called the cyberbullying. So we can say that important point regarding to the cyberbullying are basically cyberbullying is the use of digital communication tools. Or we can say that bullying using digital communication tools such as internet or cell phones. First of all, so they are the mediums, and in which we make a person feel angry, sad, scared, or scared again and again. And act include sending hurtful text or instant messages and posting embarrassing photos or videos on his social media sites such as Facebook or WhatsApp, Instagram, etc. And spreading mean rumors online with cell phones. This is called cyberbullying, and this is a type of cybercrime. Cyberbullying is bullying that takes place, and there are some points again. So cyberbullying is bullying that takes place over digital device like cell phone, computer, and tablets. Already discussed, I think. Second is cyberbullying can occur through SMS, text, or apps online in social media, forums, or gaming where people can view, participate, or share contents. Third point, cyberbullying includes sending, posting, or sharing negative, harmful, false, or mean content about someone else. And it can include sharing personal or private information about someone else, causing embarrassment or humiliation. Some cyberbullying crosses the line into unlawful and criminal behavior. So, these are the 4 points which describe cyberbullying. So, first point, basically, cyberbullying takes place over digital device, and digital device contains cell phone, computers, or tablets. Second point, cyberbullying can occur through SMS, text, or apps online in social media sites, forums, or gaming. Third, cyberbullying includes sending, posting, or sharing negative, note down, negative, harmful, false, or mean content. And fourth point is it can include sharing personal or private information about someone else. Next point, cyberbullying. About cyberbullying, the most common places where cyber occurs are. Now the question is, where cyberbullying occurs. So it occurs basically in social media sites such as Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok. Text messages, messaging, and messaging apps on mobile or tablet devices. Instant messages, messaging, direct messaging, and online chatting over the internet. Online forums, chat rooms, message boards such as Reddit, and email, online gaming, and online gaming communities. So these are the basic places where cyberbullying can occur. Now we can conclude that cyberbullying is basically an illegal activity and it takes place over digital devices. Or cyberbullying can occur through SMS text, and whenever one person sending or posting, sharing negative, harmful, or mean content over internet for someone else, then it is categorized into cyberbullying, and it can include sharing personal or private information. And when we say that places where cyberbullying can occur, then these places include social media such as Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok, and instant messaging sites, email, online gaming communities, etc. Next point is cyber stalking. It is little bit different as that of cyberbullying. Cyber stalking is defined as online stalking, and it involves the repeated use of internet or other electronic means to harass, intimidate, or frighten a person or a group. Cyber stalking is a time in which attackers harass a victim using electronic communication such as email or instant messaging or messages posted to a website or discussion group. And cyber stalking messages differ from ordinary spam in that cyber stalker target a specific victim with often threatening message, while the spammer targets a multitude or recipients with simply annoying messages. So important points are, we can conclude that cyber stalking is defined as online stalking is called the cyber stalking. Second person in cyber stalking repeat use of internet such that you can one can harass, intimidate, or frighten a person or a group. Or communication such as instant messaging or message posted to a website or a discussion group may be there. So this is cyber stalking. Next, so these are the 2 points: cyber bullying and cyber stalking, and these 2 points can be asked in your examination that what is cyber bullying or cyber stalking, or what is the difference between cyber bullying or cyber stalking. So there are some important points which already discussed regarding to cyber bullying and cyber stalking. You can write in your examination. Next, a very common term used in cyber world, that is crowdsourcing. What is crowdsourcing? As the name suggests, crowdsourcing. So I think you all of you are very familiar to the word crowdsourcing. Actually, crowdsourcing is the act of collecting services, ideas, or content through the contribution of a large group of people. So as the name suggests, crowdsourcing. So basically, it is an act of collecting services, ideas, or content through the contribution of large group of people. It means that there are many number of persons in it, and which gives their ideas or content or their service, and on behalf of that, we can perform some meaningful activity. Crowdsourcing involves obtaining work, information, or opinion from a large group of people who submit their data via the internet, social media, and smartphone apps. Nowadays, it is very common term crowdsourcing, and people invited in crowdsourcing sometimes work as a paid freelancers, while other performs a small task on a a voluntary basis. For example, traffic apps encourage drivers to report accidents and other roadways accidents to provide real-time update information to app users. So we can say that crowdsourcing is the act of collecting service idea or content and through the contribution of large group of people. So that is a basic definition of crowdsourcing, and it can be done to submit their data via internet or social media sites or smartphones. An example of crowdsourcing is that traffic police encourage drivers to report accident and their roadways accidents to provide real-time updates. Next word which is very common in cyber world, that is smart moves. So as the name says, smart moves. So smart move is an organized group of people who have gathered through the use of social media such as Facebook, Instagram, etc. to protest or lobby for a publicized social or political causes. And using social media, anyone can organize a smart move by deciding about the goal, deciding about the event size, place, date, and time, and forming a short digital message informing people about it, and finally sending this message through the use of social media to the target group of people. That is called the smart move. So, a smart mob is an organized group of people who have gathered through the use of social media. Now, the term is very important, gathered through the use of social media. Here use of social media is compulsory, and social media include Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. These all are Twitter. These all are the social media sites. To protest or lobby for a publicized social or political causes, and the few important points regarding to smart moves is that in smart move, first of all, goal is decided. After that, event or event size or place and date time will be decided, and after that a digital message is given to all peoples or selected peoples which inform about that event. So this is all about smart moves. In short type of question answer, it will be asked in examination what is smart moves. So write within 3 or 4 lines, about 50 words is sufficient, I think, more than sufficient to describe smart moves. Next is net neutrality. Net neutrality is basically concerned or related to internet service provider, which is also called as ISP. So first thing which is raised in mind that net neutrality is directly related to internet service provider. Internet service provider are those companies who provide the service of internet, and net neutrality is related to that. And what is net neutrality exactly? Net neutrality refers to the principle implemented so that an ISP enables access to all sites, their content and applications, regardless to the source, without favoring of blocking particular content, products or websites. And with net neutrality, an internet service provider ISP must ensure that it provide access to all sites in the same way. That is very important point, and it is the most important point. It provide access to all sites in the same way, and that is a basic target of or basic aim of net neutrality. And second is it load the content and application of sites and web application at the same speed. Not only the content but also speed also matters. And third, all content get loaded under the same condition. Third is related to uploading the data, loaded under the same condition without blocking or giving preference to any content. So without blocking or giving any preference to the content. So we can summarize it. Basically, net neutrality is related to internet service provider, and there is a responsibility of internet service provider that it gives access to all site, same access to all site, or enables access to all site, their content and applications, regardless their source, and without any favor or blocking a particular content. And in terms of it provide access to all site in the same way. Second point is it load the content and application of website and sites and web application at the same speed. And third is loaded at same conditions. So when there is a discussion about content, so there are three important points regarding to content, that according to the content, access of content in same way. Second point is loaded, or we can say the uploaded condition are same for all contents. And third is speed is same for all websites. That is the responsibility of internet service provider, is called net neutrality. So we can say that net neutrality is the refers to a principle implemented that an ISP, internet service provider, enable access to all site, their content and applications without partiality. Next is internet addictions. It is a very common term. I think all of you are very familiar to this word, and this is also a part of your syllabus. When a person cannot find a balance between their time online and their time offline, there are two time: online time and offline time. Means time he spent without computer or time he spent with computer, then it considerably affects their mental health. And this condition is also called as internet addiction or internet addiction disorder. Internet addiction is also sometimes called internet addiction disorder. Next term is internet addiction. Regarding, there are some important points regarding internet addiction. So IAD includes excessive social networking sites, excessive blogging, compulsive online gambling, excessive online shopping, compulsive watching of internet videos and pornography, and playing online games. So these are the types of internet addictions. Now, Information Technology Act 2000, or sometimes called cyber law. So there are two cyber laws which may be asked in your examination: cyber law and Information Technology Act 2000 and 2008. So the Information Technology Act 2000, or sometimes called ITA 2000 or IT Act, was notified on October 17, 2000. That side is called IT Act 2000. And it is the law that deals with cybercrime and electronic commerce in India. That is very important point. In 2000, there is no law regarding to cybercrime and electronic commerce. Electronic commerce just in a beginning phase in that time period. So government required a IT law. So IT Act, the IT Act 2000 was notified on October 17, 2000 for this purpose. The objective of this act are: first one is grant legal recognition to all transactions done by electronic exchange of data or e-commerce. E-commerce means electronic commerce. Electronic e-commerce means buying or selling products using internet. And second point is give legal recognition to digital signature for the authentication of any information. Now there is a word used, digital signature, which we will discuss later in this video. So overall we can say that IT Act 2000 was notified on October 17, 2000. That's why it is called IT Act 2000. and it basically covers cybercrime and electronic commerce in India. And the objective of this act include recognition of all transaction using e-commerce and give legal recognition to digital signature. There, so these are the some few important points regarding to IT Act 2000. Next is some other objective for IT Acts. It facilitates the electronic filling of documents with the government agencies and also departments. Second, facilitate the electronic storage of data. Third, give legal sanctions and also facilitate the electronic transfer of funds between banks and financial institutions, and grant legal recognition to bankers under the Evidence Act 1891 and the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934 for keeping the books of account in electronic forms. And all electronic contact made through secure electronic channels are legally valid. Legal recognition for digital signature is there. These are the key features of IT Act 2000. Security measures of electronic records and also digital signature are in place. Provision for establishing a cyber regulatory appellant tribunal under the Act. Further, this tribunal will handle all appeals made against the order of the controller or ad- adjudicating officer, and an appeal against the order of the cyber appellant tribunal is possible only in the High Court. And the most important point, senior police officers and other officers can enter any public place and search and arrest without warrant. So these are the key features of Information IT Information Act 2000. Now we can summarize it as, first of all, you should remember the date of notification as 17 October 2000. Second point, it is related to cybercrime and electronic commerce in India. So basic objective is to deal with cybercrime and electronic commerce in India. Third point related to the is that it basically grant legal recognition to all e-commerce and give digital signature for the authentication of any information. Uh, rest there are some other points. I think last points, senior police officers and other officers can enter any public places and search and arrest without warrant is an important point. Important feature of Information Technology Act 2000. And second last point, an appeal against the order of the cyber appellant tribunal is possible only in the High Court. So these are the some few important points regarding to Information Technology Act 2000. Now after some time there was amendment in IT Act 2000, and it will now called as IT Act 2008. So it come into the forces from October 27 2009 or 9 onwards. And major amendment in IT Act 2008 includes, first one is digital signature. Digital signature is a part of IT Act 2000. Now what is digital signature? Basically, as the name suggests, digital signature. So a digital signature is a technique to validate the uh, legitimacy of a digital message or a document. So basically, a digital signature is a technique, and technique is used to validate the legitimacy of a digital message or a document. And a valid digital signature provides the surety to the recipient and that the message was generated by known senders, such that the sender cannot deny having sent that message. And digital signatures are mostly used for software distribution, financial transaction, and other cases where there is a risk of forgery. So digital signature is a part of IT Act 2008. Basically, digital signature is a technique used to validate the legitimacy of a digital message of a document. And second important point, which is a part of 2008 IT Act 2008, is electronic governance. or sometimes called e-governance. So e-governance basically includes the e-documents that gets legal recognition. Document required as per law by any arm of the government may be supplied in the electronic form. So e-governance has become the part of IT Act 2008. Third is regarding to offenses and penalties. The maximum penalty for any damage to a computer or a computer system is a fine up to rupees 1 crore. And according to IT Act 2000, there are some amendments in some laws also. So other related such as Indian Penal Code 1860 and Indian Evidence Act 1872, the Bankers Book Evidence Act 1891, and Reserve Bank of India Act 1934 but to amended to align them with the IT Act 2008. So there are some key features. These are some key features of IT Act 2008. These are digital signature, electronic governance, offenses, penalties, and amendment to the other laws. So this is all about IT Act 2000 2008. Thank you for watching this video.